is the first experiment on using live API prototyping approach to learn about APIs and specifically OpenAPI. So we start here on Visual Studio Code with an empty document and we're using GitHub Copilot. Let's just type OpenAPI 3.0.0 and let's see how far GitHub Copilot will take us. So it's figured out that we want to create an OpenAPI document and it's suggesting a title. So let's say we want to build a coffee API, right? It could be anything. It's a sample coffee API. Let's use that description. And now let's try to define what we need for the API to run. So the first thing we will need is a server. So we use the servers attribute here, and actually we will need just a local server. That's where I'm running it, and it could be anything here. Basically, we could change this to anything we want here, as long as it's running locally. And now, I mean, we have pretty much all we need. We need the operations to be able to do something with the API. So let's type here paths and see what Copilot comes up with. Hopefully it will come up with something reasonable. So it's offering me the /coffees path, a way to retrieve a list of all coffees. That sounds good. There's an operation that lets me add a new coffee. That sounds interesting. There's another operation that lets me get a coffee by ID. It seems that it failed here to add a new line. Let's pull it back here. There's another operation that lets me update the coffee. And one last one that I'm interested in that lets me delete a coffee. The last one, it's a review of the coffees. Let's forget about that for now. What we really need are the components. You see it's already offering its help on creating the components, and let's accept its help. And by the way, we're seeing the errors here, the underlying errors, because we're using the 42 Crunch OpenAPI Editor. It does linting, and it also has other things that we'll use in a moment. So we see here it's already created a coffee object. Here, I don't know why it's added this. Small glitch here that I don't need any of that. So it has a coffee object here. So now it seems that everything's fine. We save the file, and now we can use this nice feature here, try it, from the 42 Crunch OpenAPI Editor, and it will open a panel here with a URL to the operation that I'm actually looking at here. So if I send a request, it will work, as you can see. And what's more interesting is if I change anything here, so let's say that I don't like the /API here, and what I want is just this, right? So if I do it just like that, it already changed there, and if I send a request again, it still works. And even if I change the port here, I mean, let's say that I wanted something like, I don't know, 8888 or whatever, and I save it again, and it's there, and it works. It still works. So That's the main purpose of this real-time prototyping, is that you can learn by doing and by experimenting while you're doing. So the next obvious thing that we would want to do is to go from where we are now, which is a mock where we get the information we get is coming from an example here on the OpenAPI document. So if we change here from espresso to, let's say, cappuccino, and we come here again, and it changed here as well. We want to go from here to actually having a more, let's say, an API that looks more like the real thing, more like a prototype. And I'll show you how to get to that point in another recording.